Hi book lovers, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is gonna be my first one of 2024. My channel is now almost 4.5 years old now, which is crazy to think about. But for today's video, I wanted to do like a yearly wrap-up of 2023, talk about, how many books I've read, what I read, what my most read tropes were of the year, who my most read authors of the year are, and also share some bookish goals for 2024. I did do a couple specific wrap-ups for 2023 that I posted back in December. I have a video where I ranked all of the new authors that I discovered in 2023, and then I also have a video where I talk about my favorite book boyfriends of the year. So if you haven't watched those yet, go check them out. 2023 was actually the year that I read the least number of books. Like, I read a lot less than I usually do, and I feel like that's mostly because of how much I was able to travel throughout the year. And for some reason, it's just taking me a lot longer to read a book, like read an ebook, than normal. Like, I used to be able to read an ebook in 1-2 days, which I mean, I still can, but this year, 2023, it took me like 5 to 7 days just to finish up an ebook. So I definitely slowed down my reading, but also I've been consuming a lot more audiobooks because I work from home. I am able to listen to audiobooks while I work, and I don't really listen to music anymore. I just listen to audiobooks. All that's to say, I read 246 books in 2023, which is still an accomplishment, but I did set out to read 300 last year. I want to say 300 is like my average throughout the past few years. Like in 2022, I read 313, and then 2021, I went crazy. I read 490 books. I don't even know how I did that. Even though I made a whole video about it, I'm still amazed that I got to that number. But looking through all of my Goodreads challenges, it was in 2013 that I read less than I did in 2023. All the years between, I was able to read more, so I am a little bummed that I didn't read more in 2023. My average was about 20 books a month, which honestly is not bad at all. And of the 246 books that I read, 140 were audiobooks, so over half of the books that I read last year were through audio. It's like 57% audio, which is the most that I've ever done for audio throughout a year. 37 books were novellas, and then according to Goodreads, I read 79,700 pages. The shortest book that I read was at 45 pages. It was Slammed by the Minotaur by Sam King. And then the longest book that I read was Manacled by Senlin Yu, the fanfic. This one was 876 pages. It was enormous. And then for my rating stats, I actually gave a lot more favorable reviews than I thought. I did count them by my star rating on Goodreads. I didn't go through each and every one of them to see like if I gave a 0.5 somewhere. So my 5 stars, there were 29 books. My most common rating is 4 stars. I gave 118 books this rating. 3 stars, 81 books, 2 stars, 17, and there's only one 1 star. I'm honestly not much of a 1-star person. Usually the lowest I go is 2 stars. 1 stars, I pretty much save these for books that I genuinely hate. I found a website that was able to do the math for me, and my average rating for 2023 was 3.64, which I mean, I would have liked it to be higher, but most of the time, I generally give like 3 and 4 stars to the books that I read. It takes a very special book for me to give 5 stars to. It also takes a very special book for me to give 1 star to. And at least I can say that I gave more 5 stars than 1 and 2 stars combined. For the genres that I read, I mean, you already know I read 99% romance, and I don't read YA anymore, but I snuck in 3 last year. I read the Six of Crows duet and also Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. Although technically Check and Mate is more new adult, it had a more new adult feel to it. My most read genre, unsurprisingly, is contemporary. I just do a lot better with contemporary when I listen to audios. I have a harder time getting into a book and understanding it if I'm listening to fantasy or paranormal. So since I'm listening to more audiobooks, I'm reading more contemporaries. Like 79% of my reads were contemporary. I did manage to read 27 fantasies, fantasy romances, and 24 paranormal romances. I am so sad to say that I only read 8 historical romances in 2023. Isn't that such a travesty? I used to read so many more, so it's a goal of mine to read more historicals, read more old school historical romances by my favorite authors this year. I'm talking catch up on all of the Lisa Kleypas books that I've been saving, read more Judith McNaught, Julie Garwood, and just start going through my historical romance collection because I have so many. And then for all the romance tropes that I read the most in 2023, I'm going to share the trope and also one of my favorite reads with that trope. My top read trope, to no one's surprise because it's my favorite trope, it's second chance romance, and I read 34 books with this trope. And a great book with second chance romance is Bittersweet Memories by Katarina Mara. It's a second chance romance between the heroine and her ex's brother, and there's amnesia, so she doesn't actually remember that she used to be with that brother. It's dramatic and angsty and so good. My second most read trope was sports romance, and one of my favorites, the one book that I've been talking about so many times over the recent months, is The Right Move by Liz Tomford. It's a basketball romance, it's best friend's brother, we have fake dating, they become roommates. It's got all of these fantastic tropes, but the heart of the series, the Windy City series, is that it's a sports romance series. And honestly, we don't have enough basketball romances. Dark romance is number 3. I read 29 of them, 14 of which were mafia. And the one book, the one series that comes to mind when I think of dark romance that I read in 2023 is the Monster Trilogy by Rena Kent. It's like a dark mafia retelling of Mulan. So the heroine pretends to be a man to join the Russian military, and she eventually becomes the hero's bodyguard. It's super fun, very different, and I loved the romance. And then 2023 was the year for small town romances, and I ended up reading 23 of them. And one of my favorite small town romances is Mixed Signals by B.K. Borison. It's so soft, such a sweet romance. The heroine is the small town baker. The hero has had a crush on her since forever. This book just made my heart so happy to read. Single parent was also a popular trope for me. I read 21 books with this trope. Funny Feelings by Tara DeWitt comes to mind when I think of single parent. It's also a very sweet, wholesome read. The heroine is a comedian. The hero is like her manager, and he's also a single dad. And there's a great relationship between the main characters and also between them and his daughter. Next up is Friends to Lovers. I only read 18 books with this trope, even though it's one of my all-time favorite tropes, so I definitely need to read more of this. But one of my favorite Friends to Lovers romances that I read last year was Lotus by Jennifer Hartman. This is more like a childhood Friends to Lovers romance because unfortunately the hero gets kidnapped as a child, and it takes like 2 decades before he's able to escape, and he reunites with his childhood best friend, and they kind of have to start over from that. It's such a unique read though. I loved it. I loved all the emotions. And then right below Friends to Lovers is Enemies to Lovers. I read 16 books with this trope, and one of my 2023 Enemies to Lovers highlights is The Crown of Oaths and Curses by Jay Bree. It was a great Enemies to Lovers romance. It's the first book in a brand new fantasy romance series, although this first book is definitely more on the enemies part than the actual lovers part. But the main characters hate each other. The hero is this fae prince, the heroine is a witch, and fae and witches hate each other, but they're also fated mates. And at 13 books is the office romance trope, the office workplace romance trope. And one book that I enjoyed with an office romance is By a Thread by Lucy Score. This one is such a fun rom-com. The main characters hate each other because the hero gets the heroine fired, and then his mom ends up hiring her at their company. I think this was my second ever Lucy Score read, and it was just such a riot. I just love Lucy Score's sense of humor. And then for my most read authors of 2023, there actually weren't too many. I think for the majority of the authors that I read last year, I read 1 to 3 books from them. But for the authors that I read 5 or more books from, actually I have 4 authors that I read 5 books from. First is Lauren Asher. I read 5 books from her. I read Love Redesigned. I read Final Offer, which came out earlier in 2023. And I also read 3 of her Dirty Air books, her F1 series. So I've been slowly making my way through through her backlist. I can't say that I love her Dirty Air series, but I at least did like her 2023 releases, Final Offer and Love Redesigned. And then I don't really know if this counts, but I'm gonna count it anyway. I read 5 books from St. Abbey. I read her Mindfuck series, which is 5 books. They're each like 150 to 200 pages, which is why all 5 books kind of fit in this omnibus. But hey, this still counts, and this is one of my absolute favorites of the year. It's this fantastic dark romance with a heroine who is a literal serial killer. I also read 5 new books from my queen, Jessica Cain. I recently did a whole ranking video where I ranked every single one of her novellas, which was a little crazy, but I did it. She came out with 5 novellas in 2023 and I read them all. Unfortunately, 2023 was her final year of writing. She's no longer publishing anymore. I'm still so sad about it, but yeah, Jessica Cain, I read 5 novellas from her. And then Katarina Mara was a new discovery for me last year and I binged the heck out of her books. I read 5 of them. I read 3 of the Off Limits books. I read a standalone of hers and also her newest release. Her books are such a fun time. They are predictable, but in a good way, like you know what to expect from them. And I definitely want to read even more of her this year. And for the author that I read the most from in 2023, I read 9 books from her. And this was mostly because my library got all of her audiobooks. I actually discovered her towards the end of 2022, which is why I read so many of her last year. But this is Adelaide Forrest. She's a dark romance author. She also writes under Harper L. Woods for fantasy romance, but I don't really love her fantasies. I definitely prefer her dark mafia romances. So I read the last 3 books in the Beauty and Lies series, which was wild but so good. I read all of the books in the Belandi Crime Syndicate series. There were 5 books there. There is going to be a 6th one in 2024, which I'm so excited about. And then I read one of her standalones. It's dark and smutty and it actually got banned off of Amazon. So 9 books total and I am still ready to read more from her. So that's pretty much my 2023 wrap up. It was a fantastic year, both book related and non-book related. One of my favorite things that I did last year, I did post this on my Instagram, but if you don't follow me there, I went on a High School Musical themed trip to Utah. I basically lived out my High School Musical dreams. I went to the high school and I stayed at the resort. It was absolutely incredible and I highly recommend it if any of you are High School Musical fans. For some 2024 goals though, for my channel, I do really want to try to post more videos towards the second half of the year, excluding December because I did the 12 days of Bookmas. I kind of fell into 1 video per week and I really want to get more than that out this year. I don't know how doable this is and there are definitely going to be some months where I just don't have time to film that much, but I'm going to try to get 1 to 2 videos out a week. Like I mentioned earlier, I want to read more historical romances. I also want to read more paranormals and fantasy romances. Like looking at my numbers, I read way too much contemporary. So I'm going to try to scale back on contemporaries and try to read more new to me paranormal romances and fantasy romance authors. For some new authors that I want to try this year, I did a whole video talking about my 2024 TBR, but I did want to at least highlight 4 authors that I'm really excited about. First up is Brynn Weaver with Butcher and Blackbird. I literally just ordered the Book of the Month edition, the hardcover edition today. But I've heard all the good things for this one. It's compared a lot to the St. Abbey series. It's a dark romance. The main characters are serial killers and they become friends. It's friends to lovers. So it really does sound perfect for me. Another dark romance author on my TBR is Mila Cain. I recently ordered the special edition even though I've never read her, so I need to get on reading this. This is the Vicious Vengeance duet and it sounds great. The back says, I'm in love with a monster and he's watching my every move. So a dark romance with a psychotic hero. Sign me up. I'm also craving to read some good marriage of convenience romances, and In a Jam by Kate Canterbury is on my TBR. This author has been on my TBR for a while. I've just never gotten to her, but I've heard this book and this author are amazing, so gonna try to get to it. And then I also have, of all things, a YA author on my TBR that I'm genuinely looking forward to reading. She's a fantasy romance author who popped off last year. It's Rebecca Ross, and I need to get to her Letters of Enchantment duet. I've heard all the good things for Divine Rivals. I don't know how the sequel lives up to it, but I'm just so excited about this one because of the whole epistolary thing. I recently bought this at the Barnes & Noble sale, the 33% off hardcovers, and you get $20 credit if you spend $50. So I got that credit and I need to figure out what books to spend it on. But yeah, I was convinced to buy this one with the friend I was shopping with, and the hardcover is so cute. It's got this typewriter engraved on the hardcover. And then there are 3 series that are finishing up in 2024. Their last books are releasing this year, and I'm feeling both excited and bittersweet, especially over the Leica series by Kristen Becker Ritchie. The final book is coming out like this month in January. It's called Nobody Like Us. It's book 13. It's the 3rd and final book for Luna and Donnelly. I've been waiting for their trilogy to finish before finally continuing on because I read their first book and I loved it, but I just didn't want to deal with cliffhangers anymore. So once their final book is out, once the final book of the Leica series is out, I'm gonna catch up. I'm definitely gonna feel bittersweet about this ending, but I'm also gonna be more excited because this means it's gonna be the start of a new spin-off series. It's gonna be the Cobalt Empire series. Addicted series readers have been waiting for a Cobalt related series, and we're finally getting it in 2024. Our dreams are coming true. We have no idea which Cobalt is coming first, but no matter who it is, I know I'm gonna love it because the Cobalaways are my first love in the entire Addicted series world. The Love Light series by B.K. Borson is also ending this year with Business Casual. This is the 4th and final book. I'm such a huge fan of the small town romance series, so I know I'm gonna feel sad once it ends. And then there's the Star-Crossed Lovers duet by Ashley Jade that's finally coming to a close this year. The 2nd book got pushed back. It was supposed to release in 2023, but we're finally getting it in 2024. Even though I didn't love the first book, I did love The Words, which is what the Star-Crossed Lovers duet is a spin-off of. So I'm just really looking forward to The Consequence. It's been a long time coming, and I know The Consequence is going to be gut-wrenching. And then for my reading challenge on Goodreads, I just set it up. I set it to 200 books. It's a more reasonable number, but if I happen to get back to the 300s like I used to be able to do, I will be more than happy. So that's my bookish wrap-up of 2023. It's been quite the year, but there's a lot of good stuff to look forward to in 2024. I mean, besides all the upcoming book releases, which I'm always gonna be hyped about, I have a lot more trips planned throughout the year. I just can't wait to travel more again. I am getting a little ahead of myself, like I'm planning 2025 stuff, so I need to relax and just enjoy 2024. Anyway, that's it for this video. A very happy new year to everyone. I hope your 2024 turns out as amazing as you hope. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye!